I was thinking, I'm going to build this software company. I'm going to stay home. We're going to go to the pool. We're going to have fun. That is not what happened. And I still, to this day, have horrible mom guilt. And I try to refocus that pain in my heart that I put on my kids to, I am raising these kids to be powerful women, men.
No matter how good we are as a communicator, when we're in a leadership position, we may not always communicate in the right way or enough or in a way that everybody understands. What somebody said, I'd like poke holes in it and be like, oh, what are you talking about? That was like the dumbest decision ever. Don't you see that this would have been a really easy decision? You should have done the A and you did B. Like, you're not a good leader. You should have done A. However, what you may not realize is what was really on their plate and what the decisions were.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 339. My name is Andrew, and thank you so much for joining me today. I am super stoked because this episode that you're about to hear today, it was awesome. It was part one of two parts with two of my favorite people in dentistry, Sarah Thiel and Josey Sewell. We talk about what it's like to be a leader in this day and age in dentistry, and hopefully whether you're a current leader or that's something that you're aspiring to become. You could even be a team member, a super supporter of your leaders. Whatever it is, I'm very sure that you're going to get something out of this episode today. So a special thank you to both of them for also, by the way, if you remember from last week, this was a little bit last minute and they got up early on a Saturday morning to do this. So I really appreciate them doing that. Next week, we have the amazing Dr. Ronnie Brown on to talk about meth mouth and addiction. She is a fascinating and brilliant woman who has just so much to share. It was kind of a fluke of how we found each other on LinkedIn. And, I barely just opened the door, the gateway to all of the knowledge and things that she has, that she's really passionate about. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear that episode as well. In fact, I was so jazzed about that episode that I went and bought her book, which can be found on Amazon. We'll have a link in the show notes next week so you can look for it there. So I want to take a minute and rant just a little bit. Maybe rant's not the right word, but I want to point out something that doesn't make sense to me and kind of makes me a little bit upset, actually a lot upset, but I'm going to tone it down for you guys. So the Florida Department of Health has restricted Dr. Charles Stamatolis from seeing female patients, as reported by the Beckers. I think it's called the DSO, E-Blast, whatever it is. So it's not a complete suspension or anything like that of his license. He's not allowed to see patients that are women. So does anyone that's listening want to take a guess why? Like, what could this guy possibly have done to not be able to see only one particular subset of the population? So before I get into the most recent offenses, the article I read mentioned that this doctor had previously had disciplinary action beginning in or around 1990. So we're talking 30 plus years of this. And at that time, it included some suspension and revocation of the license. There was also mention of the doctor being arrested and charged with battery for allegedly inappropriately touching patients. So that's the history. That's the backstory. And with all of that, somehow he's still able to practice. And I want to remind everyone, the dental board, they're charged with the responsibility of protecting the public. And that's not just protecting the public's dental health. It is protecting the public for everything related to the profession. So any recommendation for legislation change, punishments, remediation, etc., should be in the interest of protecting the citizens of that state. So this guy, he has all that history. And then the article goes on to explain that the first arrest, the most recent ones, occurred May 27th after he was accused of inappropriately touching an employee on multiple incidents in his dental practice. The employee told the police, and 3 other women claimed to have had similar experiences. He was arrested a second time on June 2nd and a third time on June 17th and faces 4 battery charges of inappropriately touching an employee and 3 patients. So I guess what I don't understand is, how is this person allowed to practice at all? Like, why was he even given a license after his first crimes? So now he commits more crimes, continuing to endanger the public. And I really wish that dental boards, the Department of Health, everyone, they got to do better. Where is the oversight in all of this? And then meanwhile, someone who does something a lot less drastic will get the book thrown at them and lose their license. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, it just seems to me, I don't know. It just seems to me that they're opening up themselves to a class action lawsuit, as a board or as the state, for not taking like a more firm stance on this. So, but in happier, lighter news, RDH Under One Roof, my friends, it's coming up. Technically, it does start on my birthday, July 20th, for anyone who cares about that. But the courses are going to start the next day on the 21st to the 23rd of July. And we will be podcasting on site. We're going to be at the Celerant booth. So thank you very much for the Celerant Consulting Group for allowing us to kind of, put all of our equipment there and have guests in the booth. So if you are around, you guys are coming to the conference, come over and say hi. I will be there when the exhibit hall is open, but I think we'll also be there a little bit when it's closed. But when it's open, come by and say hi. And let's try and get a picture or something. The booth number for that one is number 907. And so when you walk into the exhibit hall, if you look to the right, there's a wall. Just head straight to the wall, and we're kind of right there against that side wall. Also, don't forget to check out my company, Coast Dental. It's the one I work for. It's like my day job that I work for. Their booth number 813. And so make sure you head over there, especially if you're interested in moving to Florida, or you're looking for a career and you're already living in Florida. Stop by there and see what they have to offer. And also, I believe they're sponsoring the lunch on Saturday. Now, right across from them, though, I believe it's 814, is the Dentist RX booth. And they're the ones, you probably heard them on the Fast Facts Perio Edition and Fast Facts Coding Edition. They're the ones that sponsor that. So if you guys could do me a huge favor, it'd make me look really, really, really good if you just go over there and say hi and thank you for doing the sponsorship for the Fast Facts and being the people that are able to get that information out to us every week. So that is all for me. Please enjoy this part 1 of the Leadership Roundtable with Sarah and Josey.
A tale of 2 hygienists.
All right, everyone, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. This is going to be a roundtable. I'm really excited because I have some of my bestest dental friends here on the podcast today. Josey, thank you for joining us. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
So happy to be here, Andrew. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for having us.
So one of the reasons why I wanted both of you to be on today is the topic today is leadership. And you both are some of the strongest leaders that I know in dentistry. And you both come from maybe a little bit different angles of leadership. And so I have a list of probably about 15 questions that we're going to get through, like 4 of them maybe. But maybe we can do a round 2 next time. Are you okay if I just jump right on into it? Okay. So first things first is I would love for you to go through your journey, starting as, I don't know if the term follower or mentee or whatever the first, super supporter, like whatever you were before you became a leader, all the way through all of your different leadership opportunities that came through your life.
You're saying leadership, but are you talking like professional?
Well,
leadership?
I think that's the thing. I mean, that's a great question because leadership means different things to different people, right? So in your opinion, like, I said on the podcast a little while ago that, on my mission, that was like the biggest leadership that wasn't professional necessarily, but it taught me about a lot of human behavior and things like that. So whatever it means to you. Yeah.
I would say my first leadership was captain of the cheerleading team in high school, where working with cheerleaders and being teenagers, I'd love to go back and watch myself think that I was a leader back then, because I think it was probably a very different leadership style than what it is now. But so I would say, did that in high school. And I think that sports really help us develop leadership skills, whether you're the captain or not. I love it when I meet team members who have been on sports teams. And then when we were in hygiene school, I was, in SADA or whatever, and there. And then after graduate, Sarah's just laughing.
I love this.
I don't know if everybody knows. Sarah and I went to hygiene school together. That's where we met. We sat next to each other in hygiene school. We found out we're third cousins while we were there. And so this is super fun for us to be together. So I was in leadership in SADA, then graduated. I did participate in the New Mexico Dental Hygienist Association after graduating, and did like secretary, president-elect, and then president. And then I would say kind of didn't have many leadership positions for a little bit. After that, worked through clinical, moved around lots of different places, lots of different things. And then jumped back into leadership when I joined Carolina's Dentist, and then moved to North Carolina. So I sat on an executive team of a dental group. I started as a director of hygiene, then moved to what we called the director of people or culture, director of operations for a short little bit, and then was what at that point we called it an integrator, which was like a chief operating officer for a dental group until we sold it to a large DSO. Exited, was a VP of education for dental intel for a little bit. Pandemic hit, decided that I wanted to follow my own pathway, because who starts their business in the middle of a pandemic? People like I do. Easy. And so had our own two brands for a little bit, partnered with one of my dear friends, Dr. Eric Roman. So we had two brands, Traction for Dental and Joyful People. And then we ended up merging our businesses with the DEO. So now I'm a partner at the DEO, or Dentist Entrepreneur Organization. And so I lead a team of implementers or coaches, and then I'm also a partner. So there's if you wanted a list of titles, Andrew.
That's extensive. Wow. I knew a lot of those things because I've been following your journey, but like I had forgotten some of those ones. So that's good. Sarah Thiel.
Yeah, I feel like I should just bow out of this one for now. I always have to
you and
follow
me both,
Josey.
buddy.
It's not
You and me
fair.
both. Yeah.
I actually never thought of sports as being like leadership, but you're correct. I was the captain of my soccer team. I didn't even think of that, but I don't feel like I was a leader though. I just liked I like to go get and call the coin toss. That was kind of my thing. That's why I wanted captain. But in hygiene school, it's hilarious. Like I walked in, we actually sat right next to each other in the back, which is where I usually go. Josey, for sure, I knew the day they mentioned that we were going to have a president, I knew she'd be it. And I was like, please give me nothing. I don't want any part of it. Like, I want to sit on the back row. I want to get through school, and I just want to be a hygienist. That was kind of my goal. So it's kind of funny that Josey and I are in the same sort of path. I mean, we went totally different ways, but I'm absolutely not surprised at all Josey's accomplishments, because I saw it day one when I met her. She's a leader for sure. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of funny. I did this so I could be lazier, right? So I didn't have to go to conferences anymore. So I didn't have to track my CE, and it just did it for me. But it turns out it's a lot harder than that. But
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, buddy. I think all like with the board of New Mexico, with Crest, with all of these other, but that's the thing though. I think both of you, you're both missing probably very key components to your leadership development, because you guys have done so many things, and it's kind of history. You guys have
I'm just like, I'm trying to rack my brain. Like, I feel like my leadership journey has been CE Zoom, just trying to figure it out, meet people. Like, thank goodness Josey mentioned Career Fusion to me when I first started, because it kickstarted me into like meeting people, and just like when I go to conferences, I had a whole support team instead of just being alone, which I wouldn't have had that. It would have been harder to build. And so then just powering through all those conferences and meeting all these people, I wouldn't consider it leadership. It's just hustle. But now I feel like I can, as far as like a business goes, like I've learned a lot of things that I could have done a lot better. And I coach separately, like not paid, I don't do this. It's just kind of volunteer, give back, like coach a lot of people to not make the same mistakes I did when I was building my business and creating it. So
remind me again. So when you were on the New Mexico Board of Dentistry, did you already start CE Zoom at that point?
Sort of. So I did, and then it flopped because my web developers had a traumatic experience happen, and they just kind of dropped me.
Okay.
And so then I was still trying to figure out the path though. Like that was the problem. I knew there was an issue with CE, but I couldn't figure out whose fault or where the problem was. And so I got on, I was vice president of NMDHA following Josey. Were we in leadership at the same time? I don't think we were.
No, but yeah, that would have been so much fun. I wish we would have been.
Yes. And then I got on the New Mexico Dental Board, and that, like, it was such an amazing experience for sure. That was probably my favorite thing I've ever done volunteer ever.
Yeah.
So,
I will jump in because Sarah definitely doesn't give herself enough credit. I think that there might be idiots like me that are like, I'll be the SADA president because it sounds cool and fun. But then there are natural leaders and influencers. And I think if we talk about leadership being influence, people love Sarah and like what she says matters. And so she definitely doesn't give herself enough credit because she is very much a natural leader and somebody who people are drawn to and want to hear from her and want to support her. And I also think that the leadership that she's had to have with CE Zoom, she built a product that didn't exist before. She didn't really have competitors, but having to lead through developers and marketing people and hygienists and dental boards and all of these things, she's had to touch so many different people and to get this product off the ground and what it's in. And I can't wait for her to finally share the whole story and write her book because she's one of the most resilient business owners that I've ever met.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I mean, 100% agree. And I think that you brought up a really good point is, leadership isn't about titles, right? It really is about the influence. It is about what you're doing, for others and helping people along their journey. So along those lines, my next question is going to be, being a parent isn't necessarily for everybody, but what are some of the leadership skills that you both have learned as being a parent?
That's a tough one, Andrew. And I'm sure that Josey could agree with me. Especially running a business, the way we were born and raised, technically our job is to be a mom and raise our kids and not work. I've always loved to work. Even like that's why I went to hygiene school. So I could still fulfill that mom calling and do that most of the time and only work a couple days a week and still help support my family so we can do fun things. That was kind of like my whole reason for going to hygiene school. I'm not even gonna lie about that. But then building CE Zoom, and I was like traveling and hustling and leaving my children, which was totally opposite of what I had plans for. Like I was thinking, I'm going to build this software company. I'm going to stay home. We're going to go to the pool. We're going to have fun. That is not what happened. And I still, to this day, have horrible mom guilt. And I try to like refocus that pain in my heart that I put on my kids to, I am raising these kids to be powerful women, men. And I hope that they're watching. Like I love watching Josey's daughter, watch her in the front row. That like seriously melted my heart. Like that's the goal. That's what we want. And I feel like our kids, like if you look at our kids versus some other kids, they're very structured. They know what they want. They're like my daughter, Bria, she's 11. She's already like figuring out how to tear down Amazon. I'm not even joking when I say that, like, and she's serious. So I'm like, okay, those are little wins for me. When I see that, I'm like, okay, I did the right thing, but I still I missed like 5 years of my kids' lives and that sucks. And I can't go back and get it, but I would probably do it again, seeing what they're turning out like right now.
So I think that to Sarah's point, being a leader is a lot about managing our energy and managing our priorities. And that can be really, really tough, especially when you want to be a really present parent. And I just would, say everything that Sarah said, like amen to all of it, because I've been there. And it is easy to look at the career path or the accolades or the success. But we sacrificed key moments with our families along the way. Now, hoping that we would get to a point that we had more freedom of time. I think that that's it. So I think, and as far as like what is being a parent taught me about leadership or vice versa, it's one that like my kids have very different personalities. And so the way that I treat one of my children if they've done something wrong or we have to have a difficult conversation is very different than I treat another one. Now I have a child with autism, I have a boy, and I have a girl. It's almost like there's like three totally different ways of having to go about it, including their personalities. So understanding them and connecting with them to know how they like to receive love is the same with my team members. I need to know not everybody's going to love a bonus. Somebody's going to love a handwritten thank you note more than they want something else. I also think that there's this idea of the gap and the gain, and the gap is like from where I stand today to where I'd like to be, right? And that's reaching my goals or my ideals. And from where I stand today compared to where I've been, that's my gain. And I think sometimes as high achieving people, we want to push our kids to be high achieving, or we want them to work hard. So understanding that leadership principle and how I need to celebrate my team or not be super disappointed if our goal was 100, but we got to 99. How can I celebrate the 99 and not get caught in the one? Or, the classic like example with kids is like, Mom, did you see I got a home run? Or Dad? And it's like, well, yeah, but you struck out the next time. All of us have been guilty of that. And so finding out that my children progress at their own rate and their own development, and how can I truly celebrate the wins and the gain with them, is something I think that, there's a lot of translation between leadership and parenthood. And then I think what's helped me a lot in being a better parent from learning to be a leader is just learning to ask better questions and not tell people what to do, right? So when my 12-year-old daughter is talking about issues with girls at school or a hateful text message, I don't always have to fix it. I just have to sometimes ask good questions and help her like verbally process it and know what to do. So I think that there's a lot of, just similarities, but I also have to remember that sometimes I don't have to be coach. I can just be mom and be cool and have fun and not have to like everything.
I want to say one more thing based off of that. I actually feel like being a parent has helped me be a better boss, because I can understand and relate to like how each team member is feeling. Because you're right, every kid's different. Even my two girls are polar opposites. So, and you have to treat them each. You have to celebrate their wins different, and even discipline different. It's crazy.
Because they receive that discipline differently, right? Like what could be so innocent and just like, hey, don't do that. Like to one person that's like tragic, like, oh my gosh, they told me not to do that. I'll never do it again. And then they hold on to that for 30 years. They're in therapy talking about their dad. I'm sorry, Dad. Anyway, no, just kidding. Just kidding. So let me ask this. What are the hardest things that you found about being a leader?
I think that one of them is consistency, right? Like people like to know, what are my boundaries? What are my expectations? And what happens when I meet or don't meet these expectations? So consistency is hard because I think especially as leaders, many people are like the more entrepreneurial type. So we get excited about lots of things. And so trying to temper my getting excited about the next cool thing when my team is working really hard to like make the other things happen, and me not like giving up and being like, oh, that was cool, but like, I'm ready for the next thing. So consistency is hard. Change management is something we all struggle with. And with change management, I think it's also, no matter how good we are as a communicator, when we're in a leadership position, we may not always communicate in the right way or enough or in a way that everybody understands. So I try so hard to be very just like grounded, and I try to, like open up for people who work with me, like give me feedback, tell me what's working for you, tell me what's not working, please question me, please challenge me, because I want that safe place. That's what I wanted as a team member. And I think that some people, no matter how much you say that, you have to continually show up for them in a way that they're going to believe you and that they do actually feel safe providing that feedback. But what I've noticed is sometimes no matter how much I put effort and energy into delivering a message that I feel like is concise, it's clear, there's nothing to read between the lines. Because of a title, people try to read between the lines. Like they think I have some ulterior motive, or there's something else behind it and they take it. So I think that that's what's so hard, is what communication have I delivered? How has it been received? And you feel like you always have to go back and figure out, how was that received? What could I have done differently? How could I have done that in a way that they really truly received the message? Is it in writing? Is it a video that they can watch again? Is it just a conversation? So ensuring your communication has been heard and understood, I think is really, really tough and continually challenges. But I will say that many times I have felt frustrated with maybe it was a title, and because of that title, people might react differently or see things differently, that I'm like, no, that's like really not what I meant, or that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to partner with you or work with you. But people hold back because they see you have a title like, oh, she's a partner, or oh, she's a this, or oh, she's the that, when I really just want to connect with people. I don't know, Sarah, if you've ever had that.
Yeah, no, it is really hard to be in this position in a leadership role, because some days I come home from work and it's like, what are you making for dinner? It's like, I don't want to make one more decision. Not one more. I'm done making decisions. I'm just going to sit here till somebody puts food in my mouth. Like, I can't, like, it's so hard. And to have to just be, I don't know, like, I run my company a lot different than most. And I really do need to hire you, Josey. I know I talk about this all the time because it's hard. I mean, and I need that structure, just like my employees need structure. But I'm so busy and overwhelmed that I just kind of like let them roll. And then I'm like, wait, how did the ball get dropped here? And it's because I'm not leading them. I'm not giving them that structure that they want. And so I've really learned a lot this last probably year and a half to just feel like I hired my friends because I didn't have money to hire them. So they worked for free for a little while. To now be like a boss to them, it was very difficult. In fact, I almost lost an employee and a best friend over it. And we were finally able to be like, this is work, this is friend. I'm not being mean. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings because I'm a people pleaser by nature. So it was very hard for me to get to a point that I'm like so resentful towards these people that I'm like, but they also don't know how I feel. So like, you're right. Communication is huge and it's so difficult. So establishing that, I think, was probably the hardest thing for me. And I still struggle with it. I'm still very like, oh, it's fine, I'll just do it for him real quick. But that doesn't do any good. And I know this.
You with your time management.
Yeah. And I do that with my children too. I'm like, oh, I'll just do it, but it's not helpful. So anyway, that's my biggest challenge.
I mean, both of those things I could relate to. I think one of the challenges that I have is I am also a people pleaser. I want people to like me. I want people to understand that I'm in their corner, supporting them and loving them, and I'm really there for them. But then when I hear through the grapevines, like they don't really like me all that much, like it hurts. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why do you not like me? Like, I'm a nice guy. And then the other thing though, is like you said, at the end of the day, come on guys, it's a podcast. Like it's not that big of a, company or whatever, but right now it's every creativity decision is basically made by me. And that's hard. Like how many times can you talk about toothpaste? I mean, like how can you package it differently and present it to people differently and get them to be excited about it? How many times can you run an ad that's talking about different things, like that? I mean, I hear you on that one. And then, of course we have, we all have multiple jobs too, right? So we have, family job, then we have our main job, and then we all have our side hustles. So it's like, we're all doing everything all the time. So it's super exhausting. All right. What do you know now that you wish you would have known then to be a better follower?
Follower, but what do you mean follower?
I'm having a hard time with that term exactly. Like the person that's not the leader. Like when you have a leader that's in front of you, and this is kind of before you became a leader. Like what do you wish that you would have known back then that you know now? How to be better at supporting your leaders?
So I would say that as a team member, we sometimes do not assume the best in others, or we try to, like, I remember just being like, what somebody said, I'd like poke holes in it and be like, oh, what are you talking about? That was like the dumbest decision ever. Don't you see that this would have been a really easy decision? You should have done the A and you did B. Like, you're not a good leader. You should have done A. However, what you may not realize is what was really on their plate and what the decisions were. So a very example that happened to me was we were having to change benefits, and we were looking at the different packages, and it was really tough. We were in a rapid growth stage. And if you've been in rapid growth stage, that means that you're cash poor. I think that we've probably all been there. We know what it means to the revenue seems to be growing, but there's no cash in the bank, right? And so how do you manage, what are the expenses in a growing business, but how do you take care of your team because you want to take good care of your team. So we were having to change benefits, and the options were awful and they were really difficult, and it was super stressful for the company. I was losing a lot of sleep over it. And I fought, and I had so many calls, and I put so much energy into advocating the very best that I could for my team to give them the best option possible, but also balance company, just funds and whatever. And when we rolled it out, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you chose this package. This is terrible. This doesn't work for us. This is not going to be good. You're just trying to save company money. You're just whatever. And so it was really tough because they criticized the decision, feeling like it was made from one perspective or that it was meant for something else, not knowing like the sleep that I lost, the energy that I went through, how much I tried to advocate and fight for them. But as a leader, I will say anybody who's considering leadership, just know that it's lonely. Leadership is very lonely because sometimes you're the only person who really knows what happened, who really knows what went on. And maybe you're criticized because you had to let somebody go. But I can't tell you that actually they've been like verbally abusing, other people, and they stole from the company because but I can't tell you that, right? So sometimes we take so much criticism, or people, kind of like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing, but they don't know really what was going on behind the scenes and what decisions that we had to make. Most of the leaders that I've met, not all, so many of them are in a leadership position because they truly see it as an opportunity to serve others and to love others. But they often, just because we can't always share the decisions that we have to make, think like, oh, you're just selfish. You're in it for you. And it's just not always the case. I think especially as we see dentists move into different leadership positions, what people don't realize is even the pay cut that they take from being away from chair side in order to be more present for their team or to grow their organization. And it's just not something you share with everybody. So I think it's tough.
Yeah, I definitely second everything Josey just said. She nailed it with that. It's now that I've been in this type of position, as if I were the employee and I'm looking at it from that perspective, I would never question a decision. I'd just go for it with heart and soul, knowing this, they know exactly their direction they're heading. And it might not make sense to me right now, but eventually it usually comes around and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. I get why we spent hours entering data when I thought it was pointless, stuff like that. So it is a whole new perspective. And I want to talk from like a dentist perspective and staff, because I see this all the time in all those forums and rants and all of that, which I love all those pages, by the way. I'm a troll. I don't ever like comment. I'm there though. I'm watching because it's entertainment. But a lot of people complain about their dentist and how they don't pay for this or that, but you've got to sit back and think, what is insurance actually paying them? And they have the responsibility of taking care of the entire thing. You might feel like it's just you and they've got the money and they're bringing it in. You're right. They are bringing it in, but it's going right back out. So just chill out. Like, if you know what I mean, like that's kind of where it's like, I just want to say stuff sometimes and be like, don't be a diva, like help out a little more. Maybe try accelerated to help them if you want to make more money, you got to work. I'm sorry. You can't just never mind. I'm not going to go off on a rant, but you know where I'm going with that. Like there's so much more that these dentists are dealing with than just hygiene. And I'm not saying that as a demeaning or anything. It's just, there's a lot. Yeah. So being in this position now, I totally understand that because I was a diva hygienist back then. So
I love, Sarah, that you said like, just jump, like sometimes getting on board with it, where if they present something new, instead of just being like, oh no, like hating change or dragging it down or making it difficult, being willing to try something and actually contribute is super, super important. I would also say just assume the best in your leaders and don't be afraid to just ask questions, but don't ask questions in a way that like you're being a jerk about it, right? Why would you do that? Or like be curious about what the leaders of your organization are recommending. And I think through that curiosity, you can come together and make it better for them and better for you.
And then on the flip side of that, I mean, just piggybacking off, as a leader, though, don't be offended when people ask you questions. Like, entertain that idea, because you can't know everything, right? Like, you have to be listening to everyone else, and they have a perspective that maybe you don't. And I would love to say that we're all amazing hygienists, but we've all kind of stepped back from chairside, right? So if we're leading chairside people, we need their input as well.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.